Now, how is the qualitative research conducted? Now, qualitative research as a style of inquiry uses a wide variety of methods of data collection. As we have seen, the two most commonly used qualitative methods in social research are in-depth interviews and participant observation. In-depth interviewing. There are essentially two types of qualitative in-depth interviews. The first approach involves one-to-one interview in which individual responses are questioned at length about a particular issue, experience or event. The second method uses group discussion or focus group, which are designed to allow you to see how people interact in discussing topics and how they react to disagreement. There are two broadly different approaches to the way in which data are qualitative interviews may be read. The first, which Silverman referred to as a realist approach, treats respondents' answer describing some external reality, example facts, events or internal experience, example feeling, meanings, as if such data provides factual accounts of people's life. An alternative narrative approach treats interview data as accessing various stories or narratives through which people describe their world, where interviews in concert generate plausible accounts of the world. What is central to in-depth interviews, regardless of how the emerging data is perceived, is that they provide qualitative depth by allowing interviews to talk about the subject in terms of their own frames of reference. In so doing, the method enables the interviewer to maximize her or his understanding of the respondent's point of view. Critics of the qualitative approach would argue that the closeness between the interviewer and the interview that occurs in such interviews implies that the method is inevitably a subjective one that lacks scientific rigor. The informal conversational process, it is argued, provides too much scope of the interview to influence the interviewee's response in terms of 1. Revealing their own views on the matter, 2. the question style used, 3. the body language displays, 4. the behavior and conduct throughout the interview, 5th, how a researcher conducting qualitative based studies can make use of procedures to increase scientific rigor and systematically their general approaches. Issues such as observing over multiple sites and the recording of interviews are dealt in detail. There are equally well established methods for rigorously analyzing data that are considered. Any qualitative research would also counter the criticism mentioned above by asserting that it is not possible to achieve absolute objectivity in research. To condemn qualitative in-depth interview in this way is to ignore the reality that all research is subjective. Indeed, quantitative research design are influenced by the values and assumptions of those who commission and conduct the research in terms of the questions asked and by implication those that are not asked, the target groups and settings of the selected for the study, the research methods used, the method of analysis that are used, the emphasis that is given to certain aspects of the data in the analysis of finding, and by implication and downgrading of the data, the interpretation given to the data, the reporting of the research in terms of focus, selection and weighing given to the different elements of the finding. Now, what is in-depth one-to-one interviewing? Unlike structured interview, qualitative in-depth one-to-one interviews are open-ended, using interview schedule or aid memos rather than carefully crafted pro-structured questionnaire. The intention is therefore to capture the point of view of the respondent rather than the concern of the researcher. Such in-depth one-to-one interviews are designed to explore issues in detail with the interviewee using probes, prompts and flexible questioning style, both in terms of the ways in which questions are asked and the order in which they are delivered. In many respects, qualitative, semi-structured or unstructured interviews are conducted in situations where the researcher's intention is to share control of the data gathering exercise with the respondent to allow the respondent to craft her or his own account of matter in the question rather than to highly structured data which can be directly compared to the results from the interview held with other members. The use of probes and prompts in qualitative interviews enable the researcher and the respondent to enter into a dialogue about the topic in question. This can be helpful in that the researcher and the respondents are given the opportunity to query questions and answer and to verify that they have a shared understanding of meaning. Significant latitude is given to the respondent in the shaping of the interview agenda, and she or he provides with the opportunity to discuss the topic using the respondent's own frame of reference on language and on concept. This is important as one of the major concerns of researchers conducting exploratory research is to uncover issues and concerns that they themselves had perhaps not previously thought of or had little knowledge of or understanding about. These interviews therefore allow respondent to lead the researcher into exploring relatively uncharted terrain. Using this method, respondents are also encouraged to provide examples in order to ground their narratives. A related feature of this approach is that interviewer will aim to develop some form of social rapport with the respondent. In any project involving unstructured interviews, the relationship between the researcher and those who are researched is crucial. This is considered an essential requirement for this method. First, without such a rapport, it is difficult to convince respondent to participate in the interview and to talk fully and frankly about the issue addressed. Secondly, many researchers, and in particular feminist researchers, would argue that developing such a relationship as a part of wider humanist interviewing approach assists in reducing unequal power relations in the research. Here, interviews are less formal and less structured and invite the interview to take part in setting the agendas. There is also a shared exchange of information rather than the one-way extraction of data implied, according to critics, by the highly structured and hierarchical survey type qualitative interviewing method. Wherever possible, qualitative interviewers will tend to aim to reach agreement with respondent to record the exchange. This serves several purposes. It enables the researcher to capture a full transcript of the interview, which is considerably more difficult when reliant on note-taking. This also frees the researcher to reflect more carefully on the course of the interview, to think about the responses given and to plan the next line of questioning, and also to take reflective notes and comments about the issues raised in the interview that might fruitfully be returned to a later stage. Researchers should also take notes on any interesting non-verbal data such as body language and any particular episode or events that occur during the course of the interview that may have a bearing on how the data should be contextualized and understood. Data from tape recordings can also be open to public inspection by others, providing opportunity for interested peers to scrutinize and either validate or challenge reported findings and interpretations. This will also significantly increase data reliability. Making recordings and full transcripts publicly available also enables others to check that interviews have been conducted in a professional manner with data that faithfully represents the voice of respondents rather than reflecting the values and bias of a manipulative researcher. Another technique of data collection is the focus groups. Qualitative interviews that are held with the group of participants, focus groups are done so with the different purpose in mind from those held with just one respondent. The central purpose for both is to collect data that accurately reflects the thoughts, feelings and opinion of the respondents. However, in focus group, the intention is to stimulate discussion among people and bring to the surface responses that otherwise might lay dormant. Such discussions may enable participants to clarify their views and opinion positions, or on the basis of engaging with others to articulate more clearly than they otherwise might. The interactive dynamic therefore considered to be a crucial element of the focus group approach. The interviewer or moderator will use a variety of techniques to encourage respondents to debate topics and issues, to challenge opinions expressed by others, to identify the areas of consensus and disagreement, and to collect examples with which to illuminate the concept. The membership of a focus group is usually determined by some shared attributes among participants. This might be an experience, a known opinion, position, a socio-demographic characteristics, or some other variable. Thus, some form of the theoretical sampling method is used in the selection of focus group membership so that a degree of homogeneity is evident. This is very important. Too much difference and heterogeneity and the focus group may become unwieldy and unmanageable. By contrast, where participants in a particular focus group share an important attribute, it is for the researcher to identify shared position and areas of disagreement or potential discrepancies and contrast broad group opinion with those emerging from other focus group whose membership is based upon the alternative attributes.